You came to the wrong hood, or maybe the right one. Trying to make moves in the South Side? Gotta earn it, homie. Out here, you don't just survive. You hustle, you grind, you fight for every damn inch. Lowriders slide slow, eyes watching from every porch. And trust me, one wrong step, and you end up just another story on the block. But hey, you cool? Then take a seat, chill for a sec. We got tales to tell, real ones. Stories that'll take you deep into the streets, make you feel the heat, then rock you to sleep like a lullaby from the hood. So smash that like button, fool. Out here, even the hardest gotta rest sometime. The city never forgives. But tonight, you go and sleep like a king in the Grove. If the Grove's too wild for you, go chill in Vice or Liberty City. Ain't everyone built for the real hood. Go peep the channel and see for yourself. And don't get caught slipping.
The sun was barely creeping over the horizon, painting the sky in burnt orange as Los Santos started waking up to another day of grind, hustle, and trouble. The smell of fried food and burnt rubber mixed in the air, carrying the echoes of last night's gunshots with it. In the heart of South LS, under the shadow of liquor store neon lights and graffiti-tagged alleyways, Rico Ghost Alvarez leaned against his lowrider, lighting up a blunt like it was his morning prayer. Same city, same struggle, he muttered, watching as a couple of fools argued over dice money by the barber shop near Carson Avenue. Down the street, a squad of ballads lurked around the old motel, moving packs like clockwork, while the families rolled deep near Forum Drive. Keeping watch like sentinels of a block, they refused to let slip away. The tension in the air was thick, even thicker than the smog rolling in from the oil fields beyond Rancho. In this city, trust was as rare as a clean bill, and loyalty had a price. Rico had played the game long enough to know that anyone could switch sides if the numbers lined up right. His own boy Smoke, Lil D, and Bones had all seen what happens when the streets turn cold, when the wrong move puts your face on a mural instead of behind the wheel of your dream car. Los Santos was a beast that never slept, always hungry, always ready to swallow those who moved slow. The alleyways in Chamberlain Hills held secrets. The projects in Strawberry echoed with unfinished business, and even the upscale glass towers of Pillbox Hill weren't clean, just better at hiding their dirt. Rico knew that better than anyone. As the city stretched its arms and pulled itself into motion, Rico flicked the ashes off his blunt, feeling the weight of the day ahead. He wasn't just another player in the game. Nah, he was about to change it, and at Los Santos, that meant blood, power, and knowing when to strike before the city struck back. Let me know where you want to take this next: the action, the betrayal, the street politics. This story's yours to shape. Asterisk, the early light of dawn crept over Los Santos like a whisper of promise and betrayal, casting long shadows on cracked sidewalks and neon-stained walls. In the quiet before the city's notorious roar took hold, Rico Ghost Alvarez sat slouched by his beat-up lowrider parked on the corner of Carson Avenue and El Rancho Drive, the faded metal glistening with a thin film of rain, the aroma of coffee being brewed, and the lingering scent of last night's exhaust mingled with the humid air, while distant bass from a turntable in a nearby porch carried the city's raw heartbeat. Rico's eyes, sharp like the glint of a hidden blade, scanned the awakening streets, a mix of early risers hustling on foot, kids chasing dreams down graffiti-tagged alleyways, and rival crews marking territory in their own silent language. In South Los Santos, the projects of Strawberry stirred as families prepared for another day of struggle. Amid the concrete jungle, the grim realities of the hood were palpable here, broken glass littering the curbs, and old dollar stores with chip paint serving as the impromptu meeting spots for those who had learned to live by street codes. Rico remembered a time when the streets had been a game of survival and secrets, where loyalty was scarce and every glance could hold the promise of betrayal. Now, as he lit up another blunt, His mind replayed the nights of whispered plans and silent oaths forged among brothers. His crew Smoke, Lil D, and Bones were scattered throughout the blocks, each holding down their own corner of this vast urban battlefield. Passing through Chamberlain Hills, Rico's route wound past rundown bodegas and shuttered storefronts that had seen better days, places where the promise of a better life was as elusive as a cool breeze on a hot day. Here, amid the worn facades and faded murals that paid homage to both triumph and sorrow, the language of the streets was written in the scars on the brick walls and the quiet nods of mutual respect between those who'd earned their stripes. He recalled how rival gangs like the Ballas and the families clashed on these cracked pavements, leaving behind echoes of gunfire and shattered dreams, while local hustlers danced between the lines of survival and ambition dot as the city began to fully wake, sirens blaring in the distance, car horns interjecting with the distant hum of gossip from corner stores. Rico stepped off his lowrider and moved with practiced stride into an unfolding day of uncertainty. The upscale glimmer of Pillbox Hill was a stark contrast to the gritty pulse of the barrios. But even there, beneath the polished veneer, the same familiar undercurrents of envy and hustle churned. Rico knew better than most that Los Santos was a city of opposites, where luxury and decay coexisted side by side, each feeding off the energy of a community that had learned to reinvent itself every day. Making his way through the maze of Vinewood Boulevard, he passed acquaintances and old rivals alike, the clatter of street vendors setting up their stalls and the quick exchanges of coded greetings in the vernacular of the block reminded him that every inch of these streets was fought over, claimed, and sometimes quietly conceded. Each voice, whether raised in anger or shrouded in a whisper, carried the weight of dreams unfulfilled and struggles hard won. Here, in the foundational heartbeat of Los Santos, every step was both a defiant march and a solemn homage to a past riddled with loss, and lessons learned in the school of hard knocks. At the edge of a narrow alley known only to those who had been around long enough, Rico ducked under flickering neon signs that advertised late-night eats and broken promises, heading toward a spot where his crew was waiting. The familiar hum of energy from this hidden enclave, the unofficial headquarters of street wisdom and survival strategies, was a reminder that in Los Santos, unity was born out of necessity. In that cramped, dim-lit space, conversations were laced with street slang and dreams of taking back what was always slipping further away, all spoken in the cadence of a community that had nothing left to lose but everything to gain. As the morning fully broke, the city's pulse quickened. Rico felt the weight of the day ahead, an unspoken challenge hanging in the humid air, charged with the promise of opportunity and peril in equal measure. He wasn't just another face in the crowd. He was a product of these unforgiving streets, a hustler with ambition, hardened by the realities of a life where every moment was a calculated risk and loyalty meant more than gold. Today, like every day, held the potential for both chaos and change. And as Rico exhaled a slow plume of smoke into the awakening sky, he vowed silently that he would be the one to tip the scales, to reshape the game of Los Santos in his own uncompromising image, no matter what the cost. Asterisk. The heat of the day had finally settled in over Los Santos, and the initial calm had given way to a rising tension that buzzed in every cracked pavement and graffiti-tagged wall. Rico Ghost Alvarez stepped away from the cramped alcove of their hideout, his eyes scanning the neighborhood with the quiet intensity of a man who had seen too much to be fooled by mere appearances. His crew Smoke, Lil D, and Bones was already moving through the blocks like ghosts in the urban labyrinth, each on a mission that would soon converge into the next move of their intricate hustle. In the heart of Chamberlain Hills, where the streets wore their scars like badges of honor, Rico made his way down a narrow passage flanked by shuttered bodegas and low-lit corners. The air rippled with anticipation as familiar faces emerged from doorways and stoops, nodding in silent recognition. Conversation was sparse and coded exchanges laced with the weight of shared history and urgent demands of survival. Rumors had been swirling all morning. A shipment of fresh contraband was due to hit a corner store in Strawberry later that day, and rival crews, thirsty for a piece of the action, were rolling deep in their tinted rides. Rico's mind churned with the possibilities. Securing that shipment would not only fill their pockets, but also send a clear message to anyone eyeing their turf. As he turned down an alley, the rhythmic sound of distant bass from a block party bounced off the crumbling walls, mingling with the hum of fixed conversations in the local lingo. Every beat felt like the pulse of Los Santos, itself a city that, despite its gloss and glitter in some parts, never forgot its roots in struggle and street honor. Approaching the corner, where an old mural chronicling the city's past hustles and heartache still clung to the brick, Rico found his boys waiting. Near a battered basketball hoop, Smoke, his eyes wary under the brim of a faded cap, exchanged a few crisp words with Lil D, whose nervous energy was tangible in the way he drummed his fingers against the chipped foam. Bones, silent as always, kept a lookout from his perch atop a rusting car, his posture a perfect blend of vigilance and readiness. Without missing a beat, Rico laid out the plan in low, measured tones. They'd roll out into teams, one to secure the perimeter and intercept any heat from the rivals, and the other to move in swiftly for the real score. The plan was risky, but in a city where luck rolled off the dice every day, caution wasn't an option, and hesitation was deadly dot as the crew dispersed into the maze of streets. Rico moved on toward a familiar contact, a street hustler known as Big T, who ran tight operations out of a converted garage in the back streets of Vinewood. There, amidst the hiss of air conditioning and the buzz of outdated fluorescent lights, Big T waited with news and the keys to that crucial shipment. Over cups of lukewarm, sugary soda, Big T recounted how the shipment was securely parked in the back of a nondescript van near a small, rundown convenience store. On the outskirts of the block, an easy target if you knew the right angles, and if you could move before the ballers in their lowriders caught wind. Flashbulbs from the past danced in Rico's eyes as he recalled earlier hustles where quick thinking and raw grit had turned the tables on bigger adversaries. This was another test of that same metal. He could already sense the electric tension that vibrated through every hidden corner of their neighborhood. Outside, the city was stirring in a chaotic ballet sirens in the distance, the revving of engines and the snatches of conversations that carried both hope and caution along its dusty roads. The meeting with Big T ended with a curt nod and a shared understanding. As Rico stepped back into the scorch of the Los Santos afternoon, he powered his lowrider with a quiet engine growl that vibrated through the pavement. He navigated through the labyrinthine grid of Vinewood Boulevard, past rows of hustlers, corner, store prophets, and street preachers sharing gospel over the clamor of daily grind. Every block was alive with its own tale of aspiration and struggle and endless fable of those who fought for every inch in a city where only the relentless could truly thrive. Now was the moment when every risk, every whispered warning of betrayal, and every promise of loyalty was about to be tested in full daylight. Rico's mind raced with a mix of street wisdom and unyielding ambition as he closed in on the rendezvous point where his crew would reconvene after making their moves. A sense of urgency punctuated his every step, the rhythm of Los Santos falling in line with his own heartbeat, a steady cadence that spurred him toward the next phase of their bold plan. On the corner of a crumbling intersection near Strawberry, where time-worn murals and tired streetlights witnessed countless hustles, Rico met up with Smoke again. The two exchanged a firm handshake, a tacit vow that the mission would proceed, regardless of the looming dangers, with the crew ready to pivot at a moment's notice. Rico's gaze hardened into the determined focus of a man who knew that every decision, every calculated risk, was a step toward reshaping the game in their favor. As the afternoon deepened into a haze of tension and anticipation, The city itself seemed to hold its breath. Los Santos was a beast of concrete and survival, a living testament to the unyielding spirit of those who refuse to be beaten. And Rico Ghost Alvarez was poised on the brink of another defining moment in the endless saga of the streets, a moment where ambition met opportunity, and the grit of the ghetto was set to turn dreams into tangible power. The afternoon heat began to shimmer off the cracked pavement as Rico Ghost Alvarez moved with purpose through the maze-like back streets of Strawberry. The plan was set: secure the shipment before the rival crews could pounce and show Los Santos that the block wasn't theirs for the taking. Rico's lowrider idled softly near the quiet convenience store where Big T had said the van would be parked. In the humid air, every whisper of wind carried the distant rumble of engines and murmurs of restless tension, a constant reminder that trouble could be lurking just around the corner. Rico's crew was already in motion. Smoke had taken to patrolling a stretch of Vinewood where a few lowriders with tinted windows crept like shadows, each one potentially a scout for the Ballas or a snitch for the families. Lil D was on the lookout at the busy intersection, his eyes narrowing whenever a stranger glanced along, while Bones maintained a silent vigil from atop a rusted dumpster that overlooked the alley leading to the Vin's hideout. The synchronization of their movements was like a well-rehearsed dance of calculated play against the odds, with every step measured and every heartbeat accounted for. Creeping through a narrow passageway behind shuttered storefronts, Rico approached the spot where the shipment was supposed to be waiting. The building's cracked facade and a single flickering street lamp were the only witnesses to the clandestine operation about to unfold. Leaning against the cool brick wall, Rico watched as a battered delivery van rolled slowly into position and parked in the half-lit lot. Its faded paint and rusted trim marked it as an undesirable target for most, but for men like him and his crew, it was an opportunity wrapped in danger. Before moving in, Rico pulled out his phone. A few terse texts exchanged with Big T confirmed the details. The van held crates of uncut merchandise goods that could tip the balance of power in the neighborhood, but the information also came with a warning. Word had spread that rival sets were circling, hungry to claim the prize for themselves. Rico's mind flashed back to countless nights where alliances had shifted like the wind, and loyalties were measured in fleeting glances. The risk was high, but in Los Santos, playing it safe meant being left behind. Quietly, Rico signaled to Smoke with a subtle nod. Smoke, blending into the dim light along the sidewalk, started to circle around the back of the lot while Lil D, anxious yet determined, signaled from across the street. Bones' presence was a silent reassurance from above, his eyes scanning every movement below. Rico slid into the shadows, his every step precise as he made his way to the Vin's rear. The rhythmic thump of his boots on cracked concrete kept pace with his racing thoughts, a mix of streetwise caution and raw ambition. Just as he reached the van, the sound of tires skidding abruptly broke the fragile hush of the moment. A rival lowrider burst into view, its engine roaring as it screeched to a halt a few feet away. Rico's heart skipped a beat as signal that the enemy had arrived sooner than expected. Without hesitation, he crouched behind the van and pressed, his back against the cool metal, listening as muffled voices filled the air. The rival crew was disembarking, armed and alert, their words filled with the staccato rhythm of the ghetto, a language of threats and bravado that echoed over the concrete. Rico's instincts took over. He pressed his lips together, steeling himself for the inevitable clash. Smoke emerged from his hiding place, his eyes cold and determined as he moved to cut off the rival crew's exit. In the distance, Lil D fumbled with his phone, ready to trigger an alarm of diversion if things went sideways. Bones, ever watchful, repositioned himself to relay any unexpected movement. The plan was unraveling in real time, the delicate balance between opportunity and chaos tilting dangerously. A sharp shout split the air as one of the rivals pointed in Rico's direction. The tension of seconds stretched into a charged silence as Rico decided he wouldn't let opportunity slip away. In a burst of movement, he darted from behind the van, drawing the attention of the rival members. The ensuing scuffle was sudden and brutal. A flurry of fists, shouted challenges, and the crash of bodies against concrete. Rico fought with the ferocity born of years of survival in these unforgiving streets. Every blow an echo of battles past, every dodge a testament to a life lived on the knife's edge. Through the melee, Rico's eyes locked onto the van. With calculated precision, he and a couple of his trusted crew members surged forward to secure the vehicle. Smoke's voice crackled over the comms. "Get that shipment, Ghost. Hold them off." Amid the chaos, Rico forced open the rear door of the van and found the crates stacked inside. The moment was both exhilarating and perilous at turning point that could mean massive gain or deadly loss. The brawl wavered as rival members exchanged blows near the lot, but Rico's focus remained razor sharp. He signaled to Lil D and Bones, and together they began loading the crates into a discreet pickup parked at the edge of the lot. Every movement was timed with the rhythm of a ticking clock, every shadow a potential threat, blood mixed with sweat and determination as they fought for every second. The distant wail of sirens promising further complications died as the pickup's engine grated into life. Rico glanced back at the chaos of street battleground lit by the diesel glow and neon fragments of a dying day. He knew that this score was only the beginning. In Los Santos, every victory came at a price, and the echoes of this skirmish would reverberate through the hood for days to come. With one last glance at his crew, he accelerated into the dust-filled street, determined that the hustle would carry him and his men toward a future where the rules of the game were rewritten by those brave enough to seize their moment. The pickup roared down the cracked streets as sirens wailed in the distance, a twisted symphony of pursuit and defiance that merged with the pulse of Los Santos. Rico Ghost Alvarez gripped the worn steering wheel of his lowrider, his eyes locked on the rearview mirror where rival lowrider headlights sliced through the hazy dusk. The chase was on, and every second stretched out like an eternity in the concrete jungle. As the pickup hurtled through the labyrinth of back alleys, Rico's crew sprang into coordinated action. Smoke's steady voice over the comms warned, "There, close. Need to shake him off." Lil D, his hands tied around his phone, prepared to trigger a diversion, a burst of sound and light to scatter the pursuers. Overhead, Bones kept a silent, vigilant watch from a high rooftop, his gaze never wavering from the vulnerable cityscape below, ready to call out any unexpected moves. Cornering sharply on a narrow side street in the heart of Strawberry, Rico eased the lowrider into a maze of twisting alleys, the pavement scarred by decades of hustle and heartbreak. The familiar walls, layered with defiant graffiti and faded murals of old school legends, bore silent witness to the relentless struggle. Below, Rico's mind raced, calculating each turn as if his life depended on the memory of every alley in these parts. The rival crew, undeterred and relentless, trailed close behind, their engines echoing like a threat in the humid air. The tension crackled like static. Rico's pulse throbbed in tandem with the relentless bass from a street lowrider sound system that spilled from an open window nearby, a raw anthem for those still fighting to own their destiny. Knowing that any hesitation could mean disaster, he maneuvered the lowrider into a deserted warehouse district, a no-man's land of rusted shipping containers and crumbling structures that had long been a refuge for those who didn't play by the rules. In that dim industrial corridor, the crew split up with practiced precision. Smoke and Lil D veered off to block the narrow exit, their voices low and urgent over the comms, promising to hold off any tail that dared to follow. Bones, positioned at a higher vantage, ready to spot as the lookout for reinforcements or an incoming ambush, under the cover of shadow and the scattered light from broken windows. Rico pressed the vehicle to a slow, calculated crawl behind a line of abandoned containers, the pickup momentarily concealed from the spill of rival headlights. Arrival lowriders. Engine roared ominously as it crept closer, its driver clearly unwilling to let the prey escape. Rico's heart pounded, his senses razor sharp as he whispered through clenched teeth, "Hold up. Let me handle this." In a fluid motion born of countless battles on these unforgiving streets, he signaled an abrupt shift in course. The pickup darted from cover, slicing through the darkness in a daring feint that forced the rival crew to hesitate a momentary pause that rippled with possibility. The decision was instantaneous. Smoke's voice crackled through. "Now, bounce." At that precise moment, Lil D triggered the diversion, flooding the alley with a burst of blinding light and booming static, while Bones' watchful call cut through the tension from above. The rival vehicles, thrown off balance by the sudden chaos, faltered engines sputtering in the dim glare as they scrambled to reset their pursuit. For a heartbeat, time slowed in the urban ballet of survival, each streetlight flickering like an ancient sentinel over a kingdom of asphalt and ambition. Rico's lowrider, a vessel of sweat, scars, and hard-won rep, accelerated, leaving behind only echoes of taunts and the fading roar of frustrated rivals. The hustle wasn't over. This was just another chapter in a relentless struggle for respect and territory in Los Santos. Yet, in that stolen moment of fleeting victory, Rico felt the unyielding thrill of the chaser reminder that the streets were his kingdom, and he was its unchallenged ruler. As the pickup merged onto a deserted boulevard towards a safer hideout, the city continued its never-ending dance of light and shadow, loyalty and betrayal. The adrenaline of the pursuit seared deeply into Rico's memory. Every twist of the road, every flash of rival headlights, every pulse of the urban rhythm reinforced the creed of the hood in Los Santos. You either move fast or get left behind. And tonight, Rico Ghost Alvarez had proven once more that when the stakes are high and the streets are hungry, he was always ready to ride out the storm. Asterisk, the night deepened over Los Santos, a velvet curtain pierced by the sporadic glint of neon and the distant hum of patrolling cruisers. The safe house, an unassuming, graffiti-scarred warehouse tucked between dilapidated storefronts, had become the crew's temporary sanctuary, a place where the earlier adrenaline of the chase slowly gave way to the cautious energy of plotted steps. Inside, under sparse flickering lights and the soft buzz of an old ceiling fan, Rico Ghost Alvarez and his boys gathered to hash out the next move. Smoke's voice was low and steady as he recounted every moment from the pickup challenge, how rival lowriders had snarled at their heels, how the diversion Lil D had triggered had bought them that precious few seconds, and how Bones' hawkish eyes from above had alerted them to a near ambush. Each word carried the weight of hard-fought lessons in the language of the hood. Rico's mind, taught with the thrill of the hustle and the gravity of their survival, raced through the possibilities. He knew that while tonight's score had been a win, it was merely the spark for a larger blaze, a signal that the block was ripe for reordering. Outside, the city whispered in its own dialect. Sirens wailed as if mourning old betrayals, while the clamor of distant engines reminded them that Los Santos never slept on its own hustle. In the dim light of the safe house's narrow windows, the crew pored over a chalk map spread raggedly across a battered table. Lines and scribbled notes marked key intersections along Vinewood and Chamberlain Hills territory that had long belonged to whispers and shadowy deals. Rico pointed to a spot near an abandoned lot in East LS. "That's where the next shipment's dropping," he murmured. "It's a big one, enough to flip the game if we connect with the right players." Lil D's restless agitation filled the room as he reminded everyone how word had it that a consortium of smaller hustlers and even a couple of ex-members of rival crews were ready to break their silence and back a move that could shift the balance. Smoke nodded grimly. "Every alliance has got a price," he said, "but if we play it right, we could sew up a future where the block ain't owned by no one but us." Bones, silent until now, simply grunted a sound that carried both approval and the fierce promise of protection over the streets they claimed. With the plan crystallizing, Rico felt the electric pull of destiny reverberate in his bones. He cracked, opened his battered phone, and dialed a number that had surfaced from conversations in the hushed corners of local bodegas. The voice on the other end, rough and measured, confirmed news that set their hearts pumping even in the stale air of the safe house. A major drop was coming raw merchandise that wasn't just profit, but leverage to press a larger claim on the neighborhood. This wasn't merely about stacking paper. It was about rewriting the rules in Los Santos, about sending a message that the streets belong to those willing to fight for every inch of concrete. The minutes turned to hours as the crew sat there, plans in motion. Rico distributed tasks with a not a delicate balance of courage and calculated risk. Some were to stake out the designated drop zone near a condemned building on El Rancho, while others were prepped to intercept any unwanted heat by acting as lookouts on nearby rooftops and intersections. Outside, the night throbbed with anticipation, each shadow along Chamberlain Hills and Vinewood serving as both a hiding place and a potential trap. In the midst of this weaving dance of streetwise strategy and raw ambition, Rico sat back for a fleeting moment. The weight of the hustle, the constant war against betrayal, the nerve-wracking proximity of enemy crews, and the unyielding pressure of survival was etched into every line on his face. Yet, the fire in his eyes told a story of relentless purpose. Los Santos was more than a city of broken dreams. It was a living, breathing entity that responded only to the brave and the bold. And tonight, his crew was ready to make its mark as the first glimmers of pre-dawn light began to seep through the grime on the safe house windows. The resolve in that room solidified. The plan was set, the risks accepted, and the stakes higher than ever. With a final nod and a shared glance that spoke of unspoken promises, Rico and his crew stepped back into the urban fray, their silhouettes merging with the awakening streets. The hustle was on, and every step they took was a defiant declaration that in Los Santos, power belonged not to those born with it, but to those who dared to seize it with grit, loyalty, and unyielding heart. The early rays of dawn bled through the smudged windows of the safe house as the crew split up, each man disappearing into the waking maze of Los Santos. Rico Ghost Alvarez stepped into the humid morning with a determined glint in his eye. There was no time to savor victories, only to build on them. The clandestine message from Big T had lit a fire under the hustle. A high-stakes drop was imminent in a derelict lot-out in East Los Santos, a prime opportunity to solidify their control over a territory that had long been contested. In the packed back streets where the air still tasted of burnt rubber and fresh hope, Smoke and Lil D made their way toward a designated intersection near an abandoned community center. Their footsteps echoed on cracked sidewalks as they passed under peeling murals that told stories of past glories and bruised dreams. Every corner of this city had a tale, and every glance exchanged between acquaintances was laced with both camaraderie and the quiet warning that trust was a luxury rarely afforded for them. Loyalty was measured in silent nods, coded words, and the scars earned on these unforgiving pavements. Meanwhile, Bones led a separate team along parallel routes, his hawk-eyed, vigilant scanning rooftops and darkened alleys for any sign of unwanted heat. His sheltered position atop a forgotten tenement allowed him a panoramic view of the streets below, a chessboard where every move was critical. He radioed in softly every unusual sound, a distant engine idling a little along, a stray movement behind shuttered shop windows, or the echo of footsteps that weren't part of the plan. Each report was a piece in the puzzle, building a picture of the rivals' attempt to intercept the drop. Rico himself took a covert route through a labyrinth of narrow lanes interspersed with neon-lit tags and the tangled whispers of the city's low life. Every step was a blend of caution and raw ambition. His mind replayed the earlier firefight, the rapid, chaotic bursts of violence, the symphony of shouts, and the desperate scramble as the rival crew had tried to reclaim what they thought was theirs. Now, the memory of that clash fueled his resolve, a reminder that in Los Santos, a man had to be both a predator and a strategist. Navigating through the urban sprawl, Rico intercepted a discreet call from Big T. The drop was confirmed at an old warehouse near the edge of East LS. The location was a rusted skeleton of a building, overgrown with urban decay and half-forgotten dreams. It was the perfect stage for a daring move isolated enough to avoid unwanted lenses, yet close enough to the pulse of the city so that news of the drop could ripple into a tidal wave of respect among the hustlers. Rico's voice was low and commanding as he relayed the coordinates to his crew, urging everyone to move like shadows through the awakening city. The journey to East Los Santos was fraught with tension. Rival sets were rumored to be stirring, their eyes on the prize and their hearts set on reclaiming dominance on disputed blocks. The rhythmic hum of engines and muted conversations in the vernacular of the hood was the backdrop as Rico and his trusted few approached the warehouse district. Here, the buildings loomed like silent sentinels, their broken windows and graffiti a testament to long-forgotten struggles. The scent of rain-washed concrete mixed with the faint aroma of street food, the pungent reminder that even in decay, life pulsed with indomitable spirit. Upon reaching the warehouse, Rico signaled for a brief halt. In the muted shadows, he surveyed the scene with a keen eye. His crew took positions around the crumbling structure smoke and Lildy on the ground level, blending into the debris and broken pavement, while Bones was stationed on a higher ledge, watching like a guardian from above. The guards at the drop point were few, distracted by the recent confusion in other parts of the city. Rico knew that the element of surprise was his best ally. Seconds later, the heavy clank of a metal door being forced open broke the stillness. Out stepped a couple of low-profile movers hauling crates, their movements hurried yet deliberate. Rico's heart pounded in his chest, not with fear, but with the clear, focused adrenaline of the hunt. Every man in his crew was poised for action. The signal was given in a series of sharp gestures, and in a coordinated flash of dark figures. They surged forward. The ensuing moments were a blur of controlled chaos. Rico led the charge with the expert precision of a man who'd earned his reputation on these mean streets. Smoke and Lildy intercepted any potential reinforcements with well-timed diversions, their voices echoing coded warnings and the promise of retribution across the perimeter. Bones' silent commands directed backups when a rival opportunist dared to emerge from the shadows. The warehouse exploded with the sound of muffled exchanges, a terse confrontation measured in threats rather than open violence. In that dim glow of early morning light, every movement, every whispered order, was a calculated risk pushing them closer to seizing the drop dot in the thick of it. Amid the clatter of crates being quickly stacked into waiting vans and urgent radio bites that coordinated the entire operation, Rico felt a surge of pride. This wasn't just another score, it was a critical move in the chess game of Los Santos. A move that would ripple through the streets and remind everyone that power here was reclaimed through guts, grit, and brotherhood. The rivals, caught off guard by the precision of the assault, retreated into the maze of alleyways, leaving behind only the echoes of frustrated curses in the cool morning air. As the last crate was loaded and the pickup engines roared to life, Rico took a final glance back at the warehouse, a battlefield soon to become a testament to their rising dominance. With every mile that rolled beneath the wheels of his lowrider, the streets of Los Santos vibrated with renewed possibility, a city where the hustle was unyielding, and the ones brave enough to seize the moment wrote their own futures on the battered pavements. In that lingering moment between one conquest and the uncertain promise of another, Rico Ghost Alvarez allowed himself a brief, satisfied smile amid the controlled chaos. For him and his crew, every win, every risk taken, was a step closer to lasting power in a city that rewarded no one but the relentless. The dawn brightened on Los Santos as the pickup merged onto a busy boulevard, a moving testament to the creed of the block loyalty audacity, and the unbreakable will to own every inch of the streets they called home. The streets of Los Santos never gave a moment's rest. Even as the pickup's taillights faded into the blur of a busy boulevard, the lingering taste of victory in Rico, Ghost Alvarez's mouth was tempered by a deep, familiar intuition. This was only the calm before the next storm. The city's pulse, thumping in sync with his racing heart, reminded him that every act of defiance sent ripples through the concrete jungle, stirring rival ambition and drawing hungry eyes. By mid-morning, the heat had turned the asphalt into a shimmering mirror of ambitions and regrets. Rico parked his lowrider in a narrow side street just off Vinewood Boulevard and pulled out his burner phone. The voices of his crew buzzed in his ear through static-filled comms. Bones was perched on a rooftop, scanning the blocks with eagle-eyed precision. While smoke confirmed that chatter on the street was growing louder, Lil D's voice, tight with urgency, relayed unsettling news. Word was spreading that a faction of the rival crew had regrouped near the border of East Los Santos, clearly itching for retaliation after last night's hit. Rico's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the haze of the city, a chaotic blend of graffiti-laced walls, shuttered storefronts, and the constant murmur of restless lives. He knew that in Los Santos, every steal, every score, every move echoed in alleyways and across gangs. With that realization weighing heavy on his mind, he began issuing orders. We move smart, we move silent. Bones, keep scanning the rooftops for any extra heat. Smoke, lock down our backs. Lil D, stay sharp and update on any movement. I'm gonna head over to our spot near the old record store on Thornwood. We need to regroup and decide on our next play. Slipping into the urban maze, Rico navigated cracked sidewalks and side streets shimmering in the late sun, passing by a row of bodegas and patchwork murals that bore the scars and stories of the hood. He recalled how every inch of this city was a battleground. The same streets that had witnessed his crew's triumphs had also once witnessed their betrayals, and in a city where alliances shifted like sand, power always came at a steep price. At the designated corner of the cracked concrete out front of an old record store, whose windows reflected faded images of bygone eras, Rico found his brothers assembling. Smoke leaned against the graffitied wall, his calm eyes betraying the storm of anticipation within. Lil D jabbed his index finger at the buzzing phone in his hand, his face taut as he recounted a snippet of overheard conversation from a jittery informant. They're planning something big, Ghost. I heard about a hit squad coming in from the east, maybe a counter for our drop. Word is, some of them got new heat. Bones, perched on a dilapidated stairwell overlooking the scene, signaled that he'd spotted more than a few unfamiliar wheels idling near a rundown corner. The crew exchanged tacit glances of language, honed over countless late-night scrambles and near escapes. Rico knew that this was no random scuffle. It was the city's law in a relentless game of street chess. His mind raced through possibilities. This could either be a reconciliation disguised as a setup or an all-out war ignited by a score too good to overlook. In his world, reputation was currency, and the boldness to strike before the rivals could consolidate their anger was often the difference between glory and oblivion. Rico's voice cut through the murmurs, low and deliberate. We stick to the plan, secure our spot, wait for the call. But if I hear even the slightest hint that they're moving in on us, we shift. We got exit routes mapped. We know these blocks like the back of our hand. No one's leaving blood on my turf today. His words, spoken in the raw cadence of the streets, carried the weight of promises forged in the relentless pressure of survival. Outside, the city carried on obliviously. Cars rolled by, their speakers vibrating with heavy beats that matched the rhythm of ambition and danger. The hum of conversation, the clack of boots on concrete, and the occasional shout from a corner store blended together in a raw urban symphony. Against that backdrop, Rico's crew manned their posts, eyes alert for the faintest change in the scene. Every shadow, Every flickering light from a distant billboard was scrutinized for signs of an approaching storm. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as Rico paced the back of the record store, feeling the weight of expectancy in every heartbeat. Then, as if on cue, Bones' voice crackled over the comms from his rooftop perch. "I got movement on 7th and Zeta. A couple of them, maybe more, creeping in. Look like they're testing our defenses." Rico's grip tightened, his mind instantly working through countermeasures. "All right, hold your ground. Smoke, Lil D, keep an eye on them. I'm moving out to check it out." Without another word, Rico slipped into the unfolding urban chess game, blending into the crowd, eyes fixed on the approaching threat. Every step was measured, every glance a silent calculation of risk. In Los Santos, the boundary between opportunity and ambush was thinner than the smear of graffiti on cracked walls. Rico felt that undeniable rhythm, the city's pulse matching his own, as he navigated through the layered streets where the past, present, and the promise of power intersected in every wasted inch of concrete. He was the embodiment of the hustle, a man who knew that in the concrete jungle, surviving wasn't about playing by the rules. It was about bending them, rewriting them, and daring to claim each moment as his own. As the potential threat neared closer, Rico's mind settled into a cold, calculated focus. There was a fleeting glimpse of something in his eyes, an unspoken vow that no matter how the pieces shifted, his crew would not be cornered. Los Santos had a way of testing its children, and he was determined to turn every challenge into another step up the ladder of respect and territory under that relentless sky. With the city's heartbeat reverberating in each silent pause and hasty footfall, Rico Ghost Alvarez pressed on, poised to outwit, outmaneuver, and ultimately own a piece of that ever-hungry, unyielding urban empire. Under the low hum of the city's restless night, Rico Ghost Alvarez moved out from the familiar shelter of the record store, like a shadow slipping into darker territory. With every step down the cracked sidewalks and under flickering neon, he felt the weight of whispered threats and unspoken challenges drawing closer. The coordinates Bones had relayed echoed in his mind. 7th and Zeta was the point where the rival crew's presence was growing bolder. Rico's eyes, cold and calculating, scanned the narrow passageway where the murmur of distant engines mingled with the steady drip of rain from the fire escapes above. Stepping into a dimly lit alley framed by crumbling brick facades and the faded tags of old rivalries, Rico slowed his pace. The alley became a stage set for the inevitable confrontation, a moment where every scuffed boot, every twitch in the shadows told a story of survival and defiance. From his hidden vantage, he watched as the figures emerged from behind a chain-link fence, their movements deliberate yet hesitant, as if testing the space. The thud of their cautious steps punctuated the silence, and Rico's heartbeat quickened. In this concrete theater, where loyalties were as fleeting as the neon reflections in puddles, he knew any wrong move could spark a firestorm. Rico's crew remained in tight communication over their crackling radios. Smoke's voice came in low and steady, a reminder to hold positions and watch every blind spot along the alley's length, while Lil D's anxious reports painted an evolving picture of rival activity. Bones, stationed higher on a nearby fire escape, kept his eagle gaze fixed on the approaching threat, providing updates that were both clinical and urgent. Every word exchanged carried the weight of shared history, a history written in the bruises and scars of endless street battles. Rico felt that familiar electric tingle of imminent danger mixed with opportunity. This wasn't just another skirmish. It was the moment to remind everyone on these streets that respect wasn't given, it was taken. Drawing closer to the source of movement, Rico slowed his pace further, merging with the enveloping darkness until he was barely more than a breath. In the night, he could almost taste the tension, dense enough to cut with a rusty blade. In a quiet yet unmistakable signal, a slight adjustment in his grip on the pistol tucked into his waistband, and he communicated silently that it was time to move in, slowly, With premeditated grace, Rico edged toward the open space where the figures paused, their eyes scanning the darkness as if expecting retaliation. His mind raced through a litany of possibilities. Were they testing defenses? Or was this a prelude to a coordinated push by a rival faction eager to stake their claim? Then, as if drawn to an invisible line on the cracked pavement, one of the figures took a step forward. Rico's instinct screamed, and he melted from the shadows, positioning himself with the precision of a man who fought these streets enough times to know every trick in the book. His voice, low and edged with authority, cut through the silence like a challenge. "You on my block, huh? This ain't a place for second thoughts." His words, spoken in the rough vernacular of the hood, reverberated off the alley walls and forced both intruders to freeze mid-step for a heartbeat. The night held its breath, the tension crackling like static in a dry wire. The confrontation had begun. In that charged moment, with the cold eyes of a rival crew meeting his own, Rico embodied the relentless spirit of Los Santos, a city where every confrontation was a test of wits, will, and raw courage. He stood poised, an icon of defiance amid the dark poetry of the urban landscape, ready to turn this challenge into another chapter in the unyielding saga of the streets. Behind him, his crew held their posts, every word and movement synchronized in a silent pact that, whatever the outcome, the block was theirs to own. And as the first real sparks of conflict began to shimmer in the depths of that grim alley, Rico Ghost Alvarez prepared to show the city that in Los Santos, only the fearless ever survived. Asterisk in the suffocating darkness of the alley, the seconds stretched into a silent standoff. Rico's challenge hung in the humid air, a gauntlet thrown down before the intruders. The two figures, momentarily stunned by his unwavering gaze, hesitated as if weighing their next move in a game where the stakes were life itself. One of them, a lean kid with eyes too wide for his own good, spat out, "We ain't looking for trouble, man," his voice trembling with a mix of defiance and fear. But Rico's response was a low growl, a sound that vibrated with years of hard-earned respect on these unforgiving streets. "Trouble finds you here, no matter what you say." Before anyone could speak further, the tension exploded. The lean kid lunged forward, his fist swinging in a desperate arc, and Rico sidestepped with razor-sharp reflexes. In that heartbeat, every lesson learned on these cracked sidewalks fired in his mind a blend of survival instinct and street wisdom. The force of the blow ricocheted off the concrete as Smoke's voice crackled in the comms from behind. "Ghost, backup's in position." The rival's partner, emboldened by the initial aggression, charged from the shadows, but Rico, fluid as a force of nature, pivoted and delivered a calculated jab that sent his assailant staggering back into the dim corridor. The scuffle intensified. Under the flicker of a distant street lamp, words turned into grunts, and the clatter of shifting bodies echoed in the narrow passage. Rico's crew moved into action. Smoke darted forward to intercept any further escape, while Lil D's sharp eyes caught sight of a second intruder trying to slip away behind a dumpster. Bones, ever alert from his vantage point above, provided rapid updates and coordinated moves. In the melee, Rico's every strike was surgical, his movements honed by years of dodging both bluster and bullets. The altercation wasn't meant for a full-blown brawl, but for a swift assertion of dominance. He wasn't interested in needless bloodshed. He wanted to send a clear message about the rules of his block. As the rivals found themselves outmatched and outmaneuvered in the confined space of the alley, their resolve crumbled like old mortar. One by one, they retreated, mumbling threats and bitter curses into the night while Rico stood, chest heaving, a silent sentinel marking the boundaries of respect in his territory. His eyes, still smoldering with the fury of the confrontation, swept over the scene with a measured calm. This wasn't just about fending off a couple of interlopers. It was a reaffirmation of the unspoken law of Los Santos. On these streets, loyalty and respect had to be earned in blood and sweat. In the aftermath of the standoff, as the rivals melted back into the city's underbelly, Rico allowed himself a brief, grim smile. The alley, once a potential battleground, now pulsed quietly with the rhythm of hardened asphalt and renewed determination. His crew reassembled around him, nodding in silent approval of the message delivered with swift precision. In that charged moment, Rico Ghost Alvarez knew that his block was secure for now, and that every confrontation was a stepping stone toward building an empire out of grit, loyalty, and an unyielding will to own every inch of Los Santos. Under the thick veil of early dusk, as the echoes of the alley brawl faded into the night's restless hum, Rico Ghost Alvarez gathered his crew in the back room of their worn-down safe house, a converted auto repair shop tucked between a shuttered thrift and a rundown taco joint in the east. Los Santos. The walls, layered with old slogans and faded graffiti, bore silent testimony to decades of turf wars and survival instincts. Now, in the cool, dim interior lit only by a single flickering bulb, the tension was palpable as each man processed the raw adrenaline of that earlier confrontation. Smoke broke the silence first, his voice low and deliberate. Ghost, they left more than just bruises tonight. Word is, they've been rallying in the South, rumors saying they got a settle score, and some of our old rivals are pulling together. Lil D, jittery but sharp-eyed, chimed in with details from his night patrol. I heard chatter on the corner of El Monte and midnight, some of them talking about a massive job, something that could flip the balance on these streets. Bones, always the silent observer, merely grunted from his spot near a makeshift map spread across a battered workbench, his eyes scanning routes and potential choke points like a master tactician. Rico's gaze swept over the faces of his boys, each one hardened by the grind and loyal to a fault. He knew that every street brawl and every contested block sharpened the knife that cut through Los Santos. All right, he said, his tone steady as the hum of motors outside. We gotta be ready. They think they pushing on our turf. They gotta understand that here, respect is earned in blood and hustle. His words weren't just empty threats, they were the blueprint of survival, a vow to defend every fractured inch of their block. Outside, the city was already shifting into its nocturnal rhythm. Neon lights flickered on, casting garish reflections on rain-slicked asphalt, while the distant wail of sirens and the low murmur of passing traffic reminded everyone that Los Santos never truly slept. Rico recalled that every victory left ripples. News of tonight's clash would spread, and soon the rival factions would either escalate or retreat. Now was the time to counter those whispers, with something louder, a move that would silence doubters and cement his crew's grip on the streets. He paced slowly in front of the chalked map, finger tracing a route through an abandoned industrial district on the outskirts of East LS, where a high-risk job was hinted at. We're picking up a shipment tonight, he explained, each word deliberate. I got a lead from Big T, a truck carrying top-tier gear and fresh product, parked up by an old mill by the river. That load ain't for petty hustle, it's big money and bigger power, but it's on enemy turf, right near a known rival drop zone. We hit it fast, secure it, then vanish before they even know what hit them. The plan was as audacious as it was dangerous. In a city where trust was fragile and every alliance was temporary, seizing control of this shipment could upset the balance of power and force the rivals to take notice. Smoke nodded, his eyes reflecting the harsh glimmer of the bear bolt. We run clean with no mess. I've got eyes on the back alleys, and Bones keeps watch from above so we don't get jumped while moving. Out. Lil D added, his voice tight with urgency. I'll keep the comms hot. If I hear any bark or if they try to counter, you know, we shift like we planned. Bones let out a short, approving grunt from his corner, as if to say that he was already reading the night. Like an open book, Rico exhaled slowly, the weight of responsibility mixing with the thrill of the upcoming hustle. Tonight, we show him that this block ain't for the taking. It belongs to us. We move fast. We move smart. And we leave no doubt that in Los Santos, we call the shots. His voice carried both the promise of vengeance and the relentless determination of a man who'd clawed his way up from nothing. With the plan set and the tension coiling like a live wire, the crew dispersed into the night. Rico stepped out into the humid Los Santos air, the neon glow casting long shadows as he merged with the urban labyrinth. Every step was a calculated risk, every heartbeat a reminder that on these streets, timing was everything. The pickup, a beat-up Van Layden for the job, idled quietly behind the safe house, engine purring like a secret waiting to be unleashed, as lower Los Santos stretched its restless limbs. On the cusp of midnight, Rico Ghost Alvarez felt the surge of both peril and possibility. In the silent promise of that charged moment, he knew there would be no turning back. Every move from here on out would be measured in grit, loyalty, and the unyielding spirit of the hood. Tonight, they wouldn't just survive, they'd stake their claim in a city that respected only the bold. And with that thought, Rico faded into the night, ready to transform another risk into a step toward power. Asterisk. The night had deepened into a velvet shroud over Los Santos as Rico Ghost Alvarez and his crew made their move toward the old mill by the river. The area, long abandoned and overtaken by rust and creeping vines, exuded a sense of decay that contrasted sharply with the power it promised. Under the sporadic glint of malfunctioning neon and the faint shimmer of the river in the distance, every building and broken piece of concrete whispered of forgotten hustles and gritty comebacks. Rico slid his lowrider into a shadowed lane that led to the mill, where his crew had been briefed to intercept a truck rumored to be loaded with an array of high-end merchandise. Smoke and Lil D had already positioned themselves at vantage points near the perimeter. Bones, crouched atop a crumbling water tower, maintained a vigilant eye over every approach with the silent intensity of a seasoned lookout. The static in the comms crackled with caution, each word carefully measured. As the crew confirmed positions and final coordinates, approaching the dilapidated structure, Rico ducked behind a cluster of rusted shipping containers that now served as makeshift barricades for local hustlers. His pulse thundered in his ears as he peered through the gloom. A battered truck, its chassis dented but still imposing, was parked under the sagging roof of the mill, its engine idled with a low, restless purr, mechanical heartbeat echoing across the deserted lot. He could see the burly figures guarding its sides, clearly expecting trouble of their own. Silence was their greatest ally. Rico raised a hand and signaled for Smoke to go quiet on the comms. The plan was simple yet fraught with danger. Neutralize the guard swiftly, secure the merchandise, and vanish into the night before any reinforcements could mobilize. With a nod exchanged through the dark, Rico inched closer, his steps soundless on the wet asphalt. Each movement was deliberate, a blend of calculated risk and raw street instinct honed over years of survival in these unforgiving blocks. In an instant, the calm was shattered. One of the guards, a hulking man with a sneer, suddenly turned as if sensing an intrusion. Rico struck first a precise, bone-hard jab that sent the man reeling into a stack of discarded crates. The second guard, alarmed by the sudden movement, lunged forward with a raised fist. Smoke, who had been shadowing the move, slid in from the side and intercepted with a hard elbow, sending the attacker sprawling. The sounds of muffled grunts and the dull thud of bodies colliding with cold metal dissolved into the ambient hum of the mill's old machinery. Moving now, Rico barked into his calm, his voice a blend of authority and urgency that rippled through the static. Smoke and Lil D swiftly joined him as they secured the truck, while Bones maintained his vigilant watch from above. Rico and his crew worked methodically, opening the truck's back door and prying it wide to reveal a trove of crates stacked like treasure. The contents promised not only a hefty profit, but also the kind of street cred that could tilt the balance of power on the block. Amid the rush, the crunch of tires over gravel alerted them to an impending threat. Rival crew members alerted, perhaps by the earlier disturbances on the streets, were now converging on the spot. The crew's tense anticipation gave way to rapid action. Smoke's low. Commanding voice cut into the comms. Backups inbound. We need to clear out now. Rico's eyes met theirs with a steely resolve. Every second counted. The window for escape was shrinking as fast as the distance between them and the rival reinforcements. Crates were quickly hoisted into a pickup parked behind the mill. Rico, ever the quick decision maker, motioned for his boys to form a protective perimeter around the vehicle. The distant hum of engines grew louder as rival lowriders began to roll into the lot, their headlights piercing the darkness like predatory eyes. In that breathless moment, the mill yard transformed into a chessboard of high stakes, each move precipitating a cascade of consequences. Without hesitating, Rico slid into the pickup and hit the accelerator. The engine roared to life, echoing off the concrete and metal in a defiant challenge to the foes trailing behind. Smoke and Lil D, stationed at strategic corners of the lot, raised hell with impromptu diversions, flashlights swinging wildly, shouts of guttural warnings, and the unmistakable promise of retribution for everyone daring to mess with their turf. Bones, watching from his rooftop perch, kept a relentless vigil, his sharp eyes tracking every flash of movement against the backdrop of the urban sprawl. As the pickup thundered away down the abandoned back road, the chaos of the encounter gradually faded into the night's embrace. Rico's heart still pounded in his chest, a drumbeat of adrenaline and the unwavering conviction of a man who had survived too many betrayals to ever show weakness. He knew that every successful score, every confrontation, was a stepping stone toward claiming the respect of Los Santos. Tonight's heist was just another move in the relentless game of power that defined the city's underbelly. In the rearview mirror, the silhouette of rival lowriders melted into the dark horizon, their presence a fading threat as the pickup merged with the labyrinth of alleys and back roads. Rico allowed himself a brief, steeled smile as he surveyed the cargo, a tangible promise of a future where his crew ruled every corner. The streets of Los Santos were as ruthless as they were unforgiving, but in that moment, Rico, Ghost Alvarez, knew that the hustle was far from over. Each successful move, each burst of calculated defiance, was weaving together the tapestry of their empire, a story written in blood, sweat, and the unbreakable will to own every inch of the city. They called home. And so, beneath the neon glow, and watchful eyes of a city that never slept, Rico and his crew sped into the depths of the urban night, ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. The game was relentless, but so were they, and in Los Santos, true power belonged to those who dared to rise above the shadows. The pickup tore through the empty back roads as the city's neon haze blurred past, its engine a steady pulse in the night. In the cramped cab, Rico Ghost Alvarez didn't dare relax. Every muscle was coiled for action. Suddenly, Bones' urgent voice crackled over the comms. Ghost, tail on fifth, the lowriders, closing in fast. Rico's eyes darted to the rearview mirror, catching the glimpse of rival rides slicing through the darkness. With a swift nod to his boys, he barked out orders in that raw, streetwise cadence only the hood could breed. Smoke, Lil D, don't let them get too close. I'm about to run a hot drop. Bones, keep tracking those suckers. We're gonna shake them off on Cedar. Without missing a beat, Rico guided the pickup into a labyrinth of narrow alleys, where the urban maze of Los Santos revealed its secret. Puffs, the vehicle's headlights danced on graffiti-scrawled walls and puddles reflecting flickering neon, while Smoke's steady updates over the comms painted a tense picture of the rival crew's relentless pursuit. Lil D's voice, tight with adrenaline, warned, they're splitting up, one's taking the long route, but the other's right on our heels. Rico's mind raced, piecing together the gridlock of backstreet routes he'd memorized from years of hustling these blocks. He hit the brakes sharp, swerved into a side passage cluttered with abandoned cars and makeshift barriers. and then accelerated down a back entrance that led to a forgotten industrial corridor. There, beneath the skeletal remains of warehouse, corridors, and rusted shipping containers, the pickup slowed to a crawl as the world outside became a shifting mosaic of shadows and stray light. Rico's heart pounded as he checked his phone for any further intelligence from Bones. The update was grim. The rival crew wasn't giving up. They were converging on a choke point near a crumbling overpass that cut through the heart of the block. Rico's jaw set with grim determination. He knew losing the cargo now wasn't an option. "All right, listen up," he murmured into the comms, his tone both calculated and dangerous. "We're hitting our safe house in Tanglewood, then splitting up to regroup. I'm taking the cargo myself if need be. No one's gonna let these clowns get their grubby hands on our score." A palpable silence settled over the radio for a heartbeat before Smoke responded. "Copy that. Ghost, we're shifting to perimeter mode. I got a crew on the north side ready to hold them off if they come too close." Lil D's anxious retort added, "Keep your head clear, man. They ain't playing. This looks like more than a chase now." Rico's eyes, fixed on the dim road ahead, betrayed no tip of fear, only the cold calculation of a man who had danced with danger more times than he cared to remember. As the pickup merged onto an even narrower dirt lane leading to their safe house, the adrenaline-fueled pursuit transformed into a strategic retreat. The rival lowriders, caught off guard by the sudden shift, hesitated on the main thoroughfare, leaving Rico a precious window to vanish into the labyrinthine network of side streets and alleys, where Los Santos kept its darkest secrets. Under the cloak of that urban maze, Rico Ghost Alvarez gripped the steering wheel tighter, his mind already racing ahead to the next move in the game. Each twist, each muted recall of street lore, was a step further from the immediate danger and closer to the promise of a secure haven, where his crew could regroup. In that dim twilight of danger and opportunity, every drop of sweat and every calculated maneuver forged his legend in the relentless story of Los Santos' story, where only the bold survived, and every stolen moment of triumph paved the way for the empire he was determined to build. Asterisk under the half-light of a dim, grim safe house, the pickup finally rolled to a stop in a hidden lot where the city's forgotten and the powerful alike came to lay low. Rico Ghost Alvarez stepped out into the cool night, every muscle still humming from the chase and close calls of the back roads. Inside the battered garage that served as their refuge, a converted auto repair joint with walls tagged in, faded murals of past hustles, the crew gathered like a tight unit of brothers. The air was heavy with tension and the metallic tang of survival, a reminder that on these streets, moments of rest were rare, and every lull came just before the next storm. Smoke leaned against a scarred metal workbench, his eyes scanning the muted chatter of low radios and the whisper of plans in the background. Lil D paced the cracked concrete floor, his hands fidgeting as he kept an ear to the static and mixture of excitement and anger simmering in his tone. Bones sat silently in a shadowed corner, ever watchful as he replayed what he'd seen from his rooftop vantage earlier, cataloging every stray movement like pieces in an ongoing urban chess game. Rico moved to the center of the room, his gaze fixed on an old, pinned-up map spread across a battered table. The map was a mosaic of their favorite haunts, contested turf, and hidden drop zones, a patchwork portrait of Los Santos that held both memories and future ambitions. Points on the map glowed with significance: a derelict warehouse lined with potential loot, a forgotten strip in East LS where rival crews had once dared to step, and a cluster of back alleys that spoke of smuggling routes and secret rendezvous. With a slow, deliberate gesture, he traced a path across the map. "This score," he murmured, voice low and resolute, "was just the opening move. They're circling, planning something big. It's time we turn the heat up on this game man tonight. We hit them where they least expect it." The words hung in the air like a promise, electrifying the crew. Smoke's steady nod and Lil D's anxious shuffle confirmed that they were ready to move fast. Bones simply grunted, his silent assent as powerful as any spoken oath. Rico's mind raced back to the pursuit on the backroads, every near miss, every scraped bumper. All reminders that Los Santos was a city that punished even the slightest misstep. Yet it was also a city that rewarded those who could read its rhythms and exploit every opportunity to seize power outside. The city whispered in a language of neon and distant sirens through the foggy glass of the safe house windows. The streets pulsed with a restless energy of promise that danger and opportunity danced forever together. Rico's phone buzzed with an incoming message from Big T. The note was short, signed, with that unmistakable street code that meant the next jackpot was on the move. The location, a rundown but strategic corner in the industrial district near the heart of East LS, where a rival faction had apparently overstepped its bounds, leaving a window for a counterstrike. Rico's eyes hardened. We move out in 10, he told them, voice cutting through the low murmur of the safe house. Tonight, we remind every hustler on these blocks that respect isn't given, it's taken, and we ain't gonna let no one steal our thunder. With that, he finalized the plan. Smoke would take the lead on security, keeping the radar clear. For any incoming heat, Lil D would handle comms and tech, watching for rival chatter and flash signals, and Bones was to monitor all escape routes from his elevated post, ready to coordinate a swift extraction if things got messy. As the crew dispersed into the night, each moving with practiced stealth into familiar darkened corridors and side streets, Rico lingered for a heartbeat, staring out into the labyrinth of Los Santos. Every shadow held a secret, every burst of neon a hidden warning. In that pensive moment, he felt the full weight of his destiny pressing against the concrete, the echoes of past hustles urging him onward into the fray. Tonight, every calculated risk, every whispered plan and silent threat would shape not only their fate, but the very turf of his beloved city. With a final, resolute nod, Rico Ghost Alvarez slipped into the urban night, ready to transform another risk into a step toward undeniable power. The early hours of dawn stretched across the streets of Los Santos, merging the quiet of a new day with the distant hum of engines and sirens long forgotten. Rico Ghost Alvarez stepped out of the safe house with determination burning in his eyes, each steady beat of his heart echoing the raw pulse of the city. There was no time for hesitation. Every moment carried the weight of potential betrayal, and every shadow hid either an ally or a threat. He made his way to a prearranged rendezvous in a narrow, dim alley on the outskirts of Tanglewood. Here, beneath the feeble glow of flickering streetlights and amid crumbling concrete walls, layered with peeling graffiti, his crew gathered in silent unity. Smoke's deliberate footsteps resonated with the unspoken promise that on these unforgiving streets, a single misstep could cost you everything. Lil D's eyes darted around with a blend of nervous energy and raw hope, while Bones, ever the quiet strategist, mentally charted escape routes and safe havens, a silent map of their survival. In the urban jungle, Rico led them with steadfast resolve, his callous hands gripping his jacket as if they could somehow hold fate at bay. The plan was clear. Later that night, a high-stakes job was set to unfold. A shipment of cutting-edge equipment, courtesy of their trusted contact Big T, was about to hit the streets. Securing this cargo wasn't merely about profit. It was a move designed to cement their authority over contested turf. Yet, in Los Santos, every advantage demanded a price, and rumors had already begun to stir that a rival faction, fueled by wounded pride and ancient grudges, was mobilizing to challenge their reign dot as they moved through the winding corridors of the city. Each step along the cracked pavement was a reminder of the countless untold stories painted on every wall in the hood. Every spritz of spray paint told tales of past struggles and triumphs, of fierce loyalty and bitter betrayal. That mosaic of urban history was as much a part of them as the thumps of their hearts. It was the backdrop against which their next move would be played out. The team split with precise coordination. Smoke and Lil D ventured alongside streets, positioning themselves to intercept any unexpected moves from the enemy, while Bones ascended to a vantage point on a half-collapsed building, his keen eyes scanning the horizon for the slightest hint of movement. Rico climbed into his modded rider-lowrider, whose lights could vanish into the darkness at a moment's notice, and set off toward the rendezvous point for the shipment. Every turn through the narrow alleys of Los Santos was laden with risk, each stretch of pavement a potential ambush spot where rival crews might lie in wait. In the desolate industrial district on the edge of East Los Santos, their next target emerged a long-abandoned warehouse that had once thrummed with life, now standing as a ghostly relic amid rusted metal and creeping vines. Windows broken and walls scarred by time and violence, the warehouse exuded an eerie aura of decay. Yet within it lay the promise of power. The shipment, discreetly parked nearby, was ready to be seized. Big T's message had been clear. The cargo was vulnerable, but hotly contested, and only those who moved swiftly and silently could claim it. Approaching the warehouse, Rico's every sense heightened. He signaled for the team to fall into their assigned positions. Smoke was to cover the perimeter, blending into the shadows with a practiced ease while Lil D maintained constant comms, his ears attuned to any stray whispers from the streets. Bones, high above on a stack of abandoned crates, kept a vigilant watch, his eyes slicing through the night for any sign of trouble. Rico moved forward, each step measured and deliberate, until he reached the heavy, rusted door of the warehouse. The only sounds were his controlled breathing and the distant echo of the city awakening, a reminder that in Los Santos, even moments of calm were fleeting. Inside the warehouse, the atmosphere was thick with the dust of neglect and the potential of undiscovered fortune. The cargo lay bundled in crates, tucked away in a corner where dim light barely penetrated. Rico's hand hovered on the door handle when suddenly a creak or a distant footstep set his nerves on edge. He signaled silently to his team, and in coordinated fluid motion, they fanned out in the gloom to secure the area. Every shadow was suspect, every movement analyzed with the cold calculus of survival. Then came the sudden intrusion, a scuffle in one of the darker recesses of the building, as enemy scouts appeared on the scene. In an instant, the situation intensified. Rico's sharpened instincts took over as he engaged with swift, precise strikes, echoing years of honing his craft in the brutal school of the streets. Smoke, ever the reliable second, joined the fray, with fierce determination, neutralizing threats with measured force. The clash of bodies against metal and the muted thud of gravel punctuated the charged silence. Within minutes, the threat was contained, and the warehouse fell silent once again, save for the heavy breaths of those involved in the silent duel of control. With the area secured, Rico quickly ordered his team to load the crates into their waiting vehicle. Every move was executed with a blend of urgency and low-key precision. The success of the heist hinged on speed and the element of surprise. As the last crate was stowed and the team reassembled outside, the distant rumble of rival reinforcements filtered through the night, a reminder that the delicate balance of power in Los Santos was never guaranteed. The crew piled into the van and peeled away into the labyrinthine network of backstreets, the warehouse receding into the darkened distance like a fading memory. Inside the vehicle, the adrenaline of the hit mingled with a cautious optimism. This was not just another score, but a calculated move toward an empire built on grit, loyalty, and unyielding ambition. Every sound, the hum of the engine, the rush of air past the windows, and even the soft static of the calm spoke of a city that rewarded only the brave and punished the hesitant. As the van merged onto a deserted boulevard, Rico allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. In the rearview mirror, the neon blur of Los Santos passed by like a montage of hopes, regrets, and battles fought in narrow alleys. The heist had gone smoothly, But he knew this was only a single step in the mosaic of turf wars and high-stakes hustles that defined the city. Every move sent ripples through the underbelly of Los Santos, a signal that power was neither inherited nor easily won, but seized through relentless determination and unwavering brotherhood. The early hours of the morning deepened into a long, restless night as Rico and his sons of the street regrouped at their secondary safe house, a battered building that sheltered their plans and their scars. Huddled around a stained map propped up on a chip table, they reviewed each twist and turn of the night's operation. The map was a testament to their journey, marked with contested zones, hidden drop sites, and routes that only those who had truly earned their stripes could navigate. As Rico traced a finger over the familiar routes, his voice, low and resolute, cut through the murmurs of approval. This move, this score sends a message. Respect on these blocks isn't handed out. It's taken. And tonight, we made it clear, no one's gonna steal our piece of Los Santos. Every word resonated deeply in the fragile silence of the safe house, mingling with the faint echoes of the streets outside. In that charged moment, with the dawn inches away, Rico Ghost Alvarez and his crew understood that every decision in this relentless urban chess game would shape not only their future, but the very soul of the block. The city was alive with opportunity and danger alike, each shadow concealing countless secrets, each light flickering with the promise of reward or the threat of retribution. And so, as the first pale hints of daylight filtered through the cracked windows, Rico slipped back into the night ready to adopt the next challenge, determined to forge an empire out of blood, sweat, and the unbreakable will to own every inch of Los Santos. Under the slow, relentless pulse of the city's midnight, Los Santos revealed both its scars and its promise. In the aftermath of their latest operation, Rico Ghost Alvarez and his crew gathered once more in a derelict room at the edge of their safe house, a converted garage lit by the sickly glow of a single overhead bulb and the stray neon from distant billboards. The space bore the weight of many hard-won nights, walls layered in faded tags and cryptic symbols. A makeshift map sprawled across a scarred table, and the unmistakable aura of men who had both survived and conquered the urban jungle. Rico's gaze swept over his crew. Smoke leaned back against a battered metal locker, his expression a blend of contemplative calm and alert readiness. Lil D's fingers drummed restlessly on a weathered notebook, while Bones, silent as ever, stared intently at the map, mentally plotting routes and potential ambush points. Every detail in that room spoke of the meticulous measures taken to assert control over their territory and of the price paid to hold it. The room fell into a focused hush as Rico began outlining their next move. His voice, low and deliberate, carried the weight of both resolute determination and the burden of a past layered in grit. Last hit was clean, but the enemies are regrouping, he said, his tone measured yet firm. We pushed them back long enough to get a taste of our power. Now's our shot to strike deeper into their game, cutting off their escape routes, seizing the assets they've been building on, and sending a message that our territory isn't negotiable. His eyes flared with intensity as he traced a line across the map toward an industrial corridor. On the outskirts, a network of abandoned warehouses, poorly lit streets, and hidden crossroads that the rival factions had begun to frequent. Smoke interjected quietly. I heard from our informant that they've been moving shipments through that corridor. It's where they stockpile the goods that keep their operations running. If we hit there, we won't just nab some cash, we'll cripple their supply chain. Lil D nodded, adding, and they might not expect a counter move from us this deep. In their new turf, we've got the element of surprise on our side, but we need to be smart. Fast entries, clean exits, no extra heat. Bones offered a firm, silent gesture that conveyed both approval and the readiness honed over years of near escapes and split-second decisions. Rico paced slowly, absorbing every word before continuing. We meet at the old rail junction, right? where the freight lines cross and then disperse strategically. You know the routes better than anyone, the back alleys, the hidden passages along the shipping yards. We hit hard, secure the stock, and vanish before they even know what hit them. Tonight, we not only reclaim what's ours, but we remind every hustler and rival on these streets that we run this neighborhood. His voice, though cool and composed, carried the tremor of adrenaline and the promise of retribution. Outside, the city throbbed with activity. Overhead, the hum of distant helicopters and the occasional wail of approaching sirens were mere background rhythms compared to the orchestrated resolve inside that room. The crew moved as one, each member slipping into his role with practiced precision. Smoke and Lildy gathered their gear, double-checking comms and positioning tools, while Bones reviewed the perimeters from his higher vantage point, a living radar attuned to every subtle shift in the urban tapestry. As Rico locked the door behind him and stepped out into the cool night air, the city's chaos welcomed him like an old foe, with treachery in every whisper and opportunity in every darkened corner. He merged with his lowrider, the engine humming a familiar cadence that matched the beat of his determined heart. Every block they passed dilapidated storefronts, mural-adorned walls, and bustling street corners seemed to hold a secret, a memory of past glories and battles hard fought. The plan was set. In the sprawling maze of Los Santos, where every move could flip fate on its head, Rico and his brothers were primed for a decisive strike. The shipment in the industrial corridor was their targeted prize that, once seized, would disrupt the rival crew's operations and pave the way for a new order. As they slid into the back roads, guided by moonlight and the echo of distant city sounds, the tension in Rico's chest was tempered by unwavering resolve. Every mile steered them toward a confrontation that promised both chaos and the fierce satisfaction of reclaiming power. In that moment, as the ensemble of lowriders dissolved into the organized shadows of the urban sprawl, Rico Ghost Alvarez understood that Los Santos was not just his battleground, it was his legacy. With the night as his ally and every heartbeat a countdown to action, he prepared to turn calculated risk into a timeless declaration on these unforgiving streets. Power was earned, never given, and the bold always rose above the ruins to carve out their future. The hum of distant traffic, the murmur of city life, and the relentless spirit of those who fought every day in the concrete labyrinth reminded him that this was more than a mission. It was a defining moment to step toward solidifying an empire built on trust, brotherhood, and the blood that stained these streets. With every breath, he embraced the challenge, staring into the vein-dark arteries of Los Santos, where destiny awaited just beyond the next shadow turn. Asterisk. The early hours of a new day found the city of Los Santos still shrouded in the low haze of turmoil and promise, its streets pulsing with a subdued hum that carried the weight of countless battles fought in silence in the aftermath of their daring operations. Rico Ghost Alvarez and his crew had pulled their latest score deep into the labyrinth of the urban sprawl. Now, with the cargo secured and the echoes of rival threats lingering in the distance, the men gathered one last time in the quiet confines of their secondary safe house, a battered building tucked away on a forgotten side street, its windows splintered and its walls scarred by the relentless marks of the past. Rico sat in a worn leather chair at the center of a long, scarred table, the blueprints of the city's underbelly spread out before him like an intimate confession of secrets never meant for the light of day. The map was a tapestry of narrow alleys, derelict warehouses, and hidden corridors where every block had its story written in defiance, in blood, and in the silent, unyielding resolve of those who claimed these streets as their own. Smoke rested against the far wall, his dark eyes reflecting memories of close encounters and harsh lessons learned on the pavement. Lil D fidgeted with a cell phone, rechecking the encrypted messages that had confirmed the rival factions were consolidating their forces for one last desperate bid to usurp their hard-won territory. And high above, Bones' voice filtered through a crackling radio kept a constant vigil on the shifting silhouettes across the skyline, his every report a reminder that the city was a living chessboard where every move could tip the balance. Rico leaned forward, his gaze fixed on the map as he spoke in a low, measured tone that brooked no dissent. We've earned every inch of this turf, but every empire has a price. Tonight, we finished what we started. We hit their supply line where they never expected it, dismantle their hold from within, and make damn sure they remember whose block this is. His words, heavy with the burden of his own ambition, seemed to resonate in the still air of that grim room. It wasn't just another heist or another score, it was a statement of purpose, a final recalibration of the balance of power that had wavered for too long. Outside, Los Santos began to stir in a tentative pre-dawn light, the distant blur of traffic, the muted clamor of early street vendors setting up shop, and even the sporadic buzz of a neon sign fighting for relevance in the darkness. All of it coalesced into a living portrait of a city that had witnessed more than its share of grit and glory. Rico stepped outside into the cool, damp air, the memory of recent confrontations still alive in every echo of distant sirens and every whisper of the wind. His crew fanned out across their familiar territory. Smoke patrolled a shadowy intersection. Near an abandoned bodega, Lil D navigated the labyrinthine back alleys with his restless energy, and Bones reasserted his aerial watch from atop a crumbling fire escape that overlooked the convergence of rival routes. The plan was set into motion with a quiet urgency. Rico's lowrider, its chrome accents muted beneath layers of grime and battle scars, roared quietly into the street. The vehicle rolled steadily under the guidance of a driver who knew every backseat fissure and every concealed passage where danger lurked. This time, the operation was different. A final act meant to erase the lingering threat of contending factions and to solidify their dominion once and for all. The target was a critical juncture in the city's underworld, a fortified depot where the rival crew had been funneling shipments, building up their meager defenses for a grand counterstroke through meticulous intel gathered over months through whispered conversations. In dim-lit corners of rundown bars and coded messages exchanged over crackling radios, Rico had uncovered the plan that would shatter their adversaries. Resolved as the pickup neared the depot in a narrow street flanked by crumbling brick facades and rebellious splashes of neon graffiti, every sense in Rico's body went on high alert. Every shadow held potential retribution. Every murmuring alleyway might be a trap, but the crew moved like fragments of a well-oiled machine. Smoke and Lil D, positioned at both flanks of the approach, maintained a constant vigil, their eyes skimming over the darkened outlines of potential ambushers waiting. In the wings, Bones calm. Measured reports over the comms confirmed that the path ahead was clear of immediate surprises, though caution was never far in Los Santos. Without waiting for a clearer signal, Rico gave the order. The pickup pulled up at a discreet loading point adjacent to a rusted chain-link fence that barred access to the depot. In a choreographed flurry, men in black attire, faces set in the hardened expressions of those who had tasted both the bitterness of defeat and the sweet rush of vengeance, disengaged from the vehicle and advanced silently toward the depot's perimeter. Rico led the charge, his steps measured and movements ghost-like, as he slipped into the shadows with the cold precision of a man who had lived by muscle and instinct his entire life. The first sign of resistance came in the form of low voices, stifled by the clank of well-worn machinery. A rival guard, startled by an unseen presence, lunged. The gesture answered immediately by a swift, calculated counter, leaving the assailant crumpled against a wall amid the echo of his own shock. The ensuing moments were a turbulent haze of whispered commands, muffled strikes, and the rapid, deliberate clearing of every threat in the immediate vicinity. It was not a free-for-all violence, but rather a carefully orchestrated dance of shadows. a precise execution that left little room for error in a place where every misstep could trigger an avalanche of chaos in a span of minutes that stretched like hours. Rico and his crew neutralized the key obstacles with such calculated efficiency that even the rival slackers had no time to react. The depot's hangar, once humming with the low drone of clandestine activity, became silent save for the measured breathing of the victorious dot inside the cavernous space. Beneath the cracked skylight, where the first rays of the sun began to intrude, the tangible prize was now in their grasp. Crates filled with contraband, the lifeblood of the rivals' operation, were swiftly secured. As the team worked in near-synchronized silence, each crate loaded into the pickup, each guard subdued, without a drawn-out struggle, underscored the resolve that had carried them through countless nights of uncertainty. In that moment, the cargo was not just a load of illicit merchandise, it was a symbol of an empire carved out of adversity, a pledge that the dominion of Los Santos belonged to those who dared to seize it with unwavering courage. As the operation reached its conclusion, the shift from explosive action to controlled extraction was marked by an almost palpable sense of finality. The pickup roared back into life, its engine a low, sonorous rumble that reverberated along the empty ones of the depot and beyond, into the sprawling network of back alleys and shuttered lot doors that made up their world. Rico, sitting in the driver's seat, allowed himself a brief moment of silent satisfaction or recognition that, despite the ever-present danger and the weight of past betrayals, they had managed to strike a blow that would echo through the streets for a long time to come. In the quiet drive away from the scene, as the cityscape blurred by its streaks of neon and shadow, Rico's thoughts wandered to the nature of power and survival in Los Santos. Every victory in these relentless streets was a double-edged sword, a marker of hard-won success, coupled with a reminder that the next threat could be just around the corner. Yet, in the determined lines etched on his face and the unwavering loyalty reflected in the eyes of his crew, he understood that their future was built on such gambles. They had weathered storms, faced down rivals, and outmaneuvered betrayal, all while maintaining the steady heartbeat of an empire that was as much about brotherhood as it was about dominance. By the time the pickup merged onto a quiet boulevard near their safe house, the city was waking up to a fragile daybreak. The early light softened the hard angles of Los Santos, but it could not erase the scars or the legacy that had been written in shadow and fire. In the safe house's battered confines, the crew reassembled once more, each man tired but satiated, their eyes conveying the unspoken agreement that this victory, for all its cost, had shifted the scales in their favor. Rico stepped out onto the safe house's sagging steps, his gaze wandering over the city that had once threatened to crush him and his dreams. In that moment, the sprawling urban expanse became not just a battleground, but a canvas upon which he would continue to inscribe the chronicles of his chosen fate. The sounds of the awakening city, a distant siren here, the murmur of early commuters, they're blended with the residual hum of adrenaline from the night's operation, forming a quiet symphony of survival and ambition. Inside, over cold coffee and amidst revisited plans scrawled once more onto rotten maps, the crew's congratulatory nods and measured smiles spoke volumes. They knew the risks of their world, the endless cycle of skirmishes that defined their existence. Yet in that solitary dawn, they shared a singular truth: respect, fear, power. They were all earned, brick by bloody brick, on these relentless streets of Los Santos. And while the city stretched out in quiet anticipation of another day of hustles and hardships, Rico Ghost Alvarez carried the silent conviction that their legacy was only just beginning. With every calculated risk, every defiant act against the ticking clock of fate, he had embraced the ruthless poetry of the concrete jungle and emerged as its indomitable chronicler. In that resolute wake of victory, amid the scars of battle and the lingering promise of new challenges, Rico stepped forward into the burgeoning light of day, ready to shape his destiny, to command his empire and to declare unequivocally that in Los Santos, power was not given, it was taken, held fast by those who possessed the courage to rise above it all.
You know we got stories from Vice City and Liberty City too, right? Go peep the channel and see for yourself. Just don't go running your mouth to the cops. Don't bounce without dropping that like, you feel me? And don't get caught slipping. See you in the block.